All right, video number 4. We have possibly 2 more, but we'll see. All right, so Islam, we've already talked about that getting established, but basically what's going on in the Islamic world has to do with the fact that you have Muslim merchants that are facilitating trade. They're using paper money, checks, credit, banking houses, all of this stuff that's going to eventually transfer over to Asia, and then eventually it's going to make its way to Europe. So this is just a recap of basics of Islam. So pause that if you need a refresher to go back and look at it. As far as our caliphates are concerned, remember Islam starts off over here in Mecca and Medina, and then it spreads. So your caliphates are going to extend all the way over here, all the way through Egypt and North Africa into Spain. Remember, Cordoba ends up being the Umayyads, one of their capitals, and that's over in Spain, and then that ends up becoming all Andalus. So the Abbasids' capital is in Baghdad, the Umayyads is in Damascus. So all of this ends up being Dar al Islam. Okay. So, like I said, just another way to kind of remember what's going on with the nice little infographics courtesy of Freemanpedia. Over in Cordoba, you have the Muslims preserving works of the Greeks and the Romans and translating it. And then eventually that's how it's going to make its way to Europe. You have people studying medical knowledge. You have the Ottomans eventually that come and take over, and they're renaming Constantinople Istanbul. Like that was their last stronghold until they are conquered in 1453. That is a super important 100% must know date. You have Ibn Sina, who's doing medical innovations, doing work on anatomy and all this kind of stuff, and looking at what like the Greeks had done to promote medicine. You have trigonometry getting developed over here with the Seljuk Turks. You have female Arabic writers, which is a big deal. These little people are Sufis, who are the Islamic mystics who are going all over the place. In Baghdad, they're building the House of Wisdom. The Mongols are going to come along and help spread stuff. So know that this is all there, and this is kind of some of the innovations and culture that these states are helping to develop. On to Africa. And so with our trans-Saharan stuff, so now you have like with the trans-Saharan trade, the caravanserai, the camel saddles, so you could sit on the little camel. We're using caravans. Big things getting traded throughout the Trans-Sahara are gold and salt, hence the gold salt trade. We are also trading copper. Slave trade becomes a thing. So these are the little groups to kind of know. So you have the Mamluks who are kind of chilling out over in Africa, and they're the ones who stop the Mongols. They're basically these warriors. You have Ethiopia, which is going to adopt Christianity. And then you have Mali. So that's the big one to know in West Africa, home to Timbuktu and everybody's favorite person, Mansa Musa, worth over $400 billion. In Mali, specifically in Timbuktu, it becomes a center for Islamic learning. So they're going to build mosques very, very similar to this one. Over in West Africa, it becomes a site for trade. And then these trade routes are going to make their way over here to the east coast of Africa and then tie in with Indian Ocean trade. So don't forget, in the Americas, you have the Aztecs in Mexico, you have the Incas in Peru. Both of these are very militaristic empires, and that's kind of how they built themselves up. So they're similar to the Mongols in that. The Aztecs are also similar to the Mongols in the fact that they're nomadic, also like the Turks, and they go and set up empires. The Aztecs are also using the concept of tribute, again, like the Mongols and the Chinese, so they demand tribute from their people. We're going to come back and talk about them again when we get to the Americas so we can come back and put all that in perspective. Know that the Incas kind of divided themselves up into fours. They have their road system. They have their labor system called the Mita, where you have to like give labor service to the empire X number of times a year. The Aztecs are very much different, organized into like confederations where everyone's paying tribute to the Mexica people. Their capital is of the Aztecs is Tenochtitlan, which is in the middle of the lake, which is present day Mexico City. So, good place for you guys to stop and pause and come and look at these two groups. When this used to be period 3, so anything between 600 and 1450, my way of getting people to remember this stuff, this was the M&M period. It's the Muslims and the Mongols. So pretty much anything from 600 to 1450, that's what I want y'all to remember. There's other stuff going on, but the big groups and at this particular point are the Muslims and the Mongols. So pause, come back, read this, look over it. It's a really good review. And let's move on to our last key concept, which is economic productivity. These are just an example of all the new different agricultural things that we're doing. Like you have the Chinampas of the Aztecs. In Peru, you have Waro Waro, which is Minecraft farming. You have terrace farming with the Incas. So these are just like field rotations in Africa. Africa. In China. So it's just different ways of growing crops that are going to increase production. It's new techniques to increase crop yield because more food means more people and the populations are getting bigger. So you need more food in order to support your empires. We're talking about like why we had a bunch of our old cities that fell in the post-classical period. So like invasions, diseases, the little ice age, which was a cooling period that led to decline in food production, which is going to cause a decrease of nutritional value for most of our people, particularly in Europe, which is going to make them more susceptible to diseases like the plague. Then when new cities rise, which these are all of like our trade cities that were back on that map, like in the first video, we have cities rising because invasions are coming to an end for the most part, unless you're the Mongols. Transportation safer. There's a rise in trade. People are more receptive to trade. There's more farms. There's more people. There's more labor. So we need these bigger cities to help increase all of this production. So my last video is going to be super, super short. And we'll finish this up in video number 5.